Waste your time, cause the boy's bad news. Just leave him alone, cause the boy's bad news.
Hey everybody, That Drew Lion here. Today we're going to be making floggers. Floggers are a pretty fun impact toy. They can range in sensation from light stings to heavy thuds. Similar to a paddle, you can do a lot with them by changing the shape or material that you're using. This, for example, is a paracord flogger. And what I've simply done to make the paracord flogger is I've simply looped back and forth a lot of paracord, tied it up, and then mounted that inside my handle. This particular piece is very light on the pain scale and definitely not too intense, which makes it a great sort of introduction to these. This particular flogger we're making today is going to be a little bit more intense, but still not very difficult on the pain scale. I got this particular piece of leather from my local leather shop. It's about 2 feet by 3 feet. It was actually quite a bit bigger. I've got a handful of leather scraps that I'm going to be probably keeping a hand on there for various projects that might come up that I could use that for. But this is some excellent material. It's quite soft, and the leather is quite nice. So it's going to be definitely a good flogger when I'm done with it, and I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how it comes out. The main thing that you're going to need for this project is going to be a piece of material. The material is very flexible. You can make floggers out of denim, you can make it out of leather, you can make them out of rubber, you can make them out of PVC, you can do quite a bit with the materials. Just know the stiffer, harder, denser materials are always going to be a lot higher on the sting scale and going to be a lot higher on the overall pain scale. Softer materials such as this leather here or paracord is going to be very much lighter, typically going to give you a thuddier sensation and give you a little bit more room to work, I think. So what we've done is we've decided here that we're going to go with 1/2 inch falls on this particular piece, and we should be getting about 38 of them when we're all done. For this particular project, like I said, you're going to need this. You are going to need a segment of dowel rod. If you did the earlier spreader bar project and you've got a piece left over, it's excellent to use. The 1-inch dowel rod turns out a bit thick. This was a 1-inch dowel rod when I first started with it, and it is a lot to handle. This right here is a 3/4 inch dowel rod, and I think it's going to be a little bit nicer on the handle overall. So definitely a good thing to kind of go a little bit thinner here. So the key layout when you're doing your measurements, the first main step is to first square up your material if it isn't already. Like I said, I had to kind of cut away a lot of the fiddly bits that you just get on a nice leather hide to kind of make this good and square. Then I determined how many falls I wanted to have on that by measuring my piece out and just deciding what was a good number. In this case, because this is going to be a thuddier flogger, I went with quite a number of smaller falls. This is going to mean the impact is much more spread out, and it's going to transfer less force to the sub. So this is definitely a good flogger for lighter play. The next thing that you need to do is you always need to add an inch or two here on the end. This inch or two is what's actually going to be glued into your handle. The way that this works is after we've cut all of the falls out of our piece, kind of just basically sliced them right down the edge, we're basically going to use contact cement, and we're going to be contact cementing this and wrapping it up slowly along the length of the material, making sure that those falls then are easily distributed on the wrap. So what we need to do now is I've actually measured up this side already. I've already got all my little 1/2 inch marks here. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of go back and I'm going to do the same thing on this end. So this is a bigger project. You may need to work on your coffee table like I am here, but it's actually pretty simple to do. So I'm just going to go through it. I'm going to mark those edges now. Alright, I went ahead and I've got all the marks made down my sides. If you are using a darker material such as this particular leather, you may need to use something more like this. This is just white charcoal available at hobby stores. You could use chalk, something like that. The idea is that I can still go back and with a little bit of moisture just erase some of those marks, so it will actually be a clean looking piece when I'm done with it, and we won't have a bunch of marks everywhere. The next thing that I did before I did the measuring and the cutting is we did go ahead and I've taped down these edges, and the reason for that is this leather is pretty stretchy, in fact, so I want to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere while I'm cutting it. It would make my cuts look bad. So now that I've got all my marks made, I'm going to use my X-Acto knife. I've outfitted it here with a bit of a curved blade. This is going to make the cuts a lot easier to do because there's more surface area going into it. You want to think of it more like filleting than like, for example, a box cutter or something like that. You use a box cutter, it's going to kind of bind up the leather as you cut it, and it's going to make it wrinkle, and it's going to make your falls kind of twiddle around a bit on that. This should be a nice, smooth, straight cut that you want, so definitely go with something that you can do some smoother straight cutting with. So excellent. Now I just have simply my straight edge here, and I'm simply going to go through, start at one end, and do some very long cuts. Excellent. So now we've got all of our falls cut, and now it's time to kind of go back through and peel off all the little fiddly bits of tape that I left. It's going to take me just a minute or two. I'm also just going to kind of wipe it down a little bit, remove those marks, remove any of the dust and things like that might have gotten on there from the cutting process, and kind of get it prepped up for gluing. So that's pretty clean. As you can see now, got a lot of great falls to it. They're all pretty consistent, and it looks pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and let this stuff dry, let all this moisture get out of it before we start the gluing process. Alright, so we've got it dried, and most of the marks are pretty well gone. You can still see a couple of them there, but I'm not too worried about them all in all. This right here is going to be the dowel rod, the handle. I did rough up and sand this edge a little bit, which is just going to make the glue stick a little bit better to the leather. To do this gluing, like I said before, we're going to use contact cement. This stuff is very strong and very quick to use, so it's excellent for this kind of project. What we're going to want to start off by doing is we're basically going to just, I'm going to do this over the edge that I'm already going to be gluing here so I don't make a mess. We're just basically going to be painting on a nice layer of the contact cement onto our handle. Then we're going to be painting on a quick layer, you know, maybe go a couple of inches on the leather. And we're going to give that just a little bit, just to kind of tack up. Not too long, because we don't want to get it to the point where it's already starting to dry up. We're just going to give it just a little bit, just to kind of tack. I'm going to apply a little bit more if it starts to soak in. Good. Then we're going to go ahead and start the wrapping. And you will get some on your fingers. It's just the nature of this game. Alright, now we're going to kind of just keep going. And what we're going to do now that we've got kind of the initial glue and bind to it, we're going to kind of go back and forth. What it is we want to do is we want to get the layers sticky, then sort of unstick them, and then let them get tacky, and then let them get re-glued. So the idea is that what we're doing here is we're wanting just to really make sure we've got a solid, good hold between the layers of the wrap here. And you may want to do this on a flatter surface than what I'm doing right now. As you can see, the falls are kind of trying to fall off the edge, and I have to keep pushing it up, but You might have to kind of go back and forth and reapply more glue as you need it. The idea behind this is we just want to make sure that it is very, very well secured. You could use epoxy for this step, something that maybe is a little bit different, a little bit stronger. But it's really up to you. Just so long as you feel like it's really going to be the stronghold, go for what you feel is right. Alrighty. And now I'm just kind of tightening it up as I'm going. So I make sure that I'm keeping good tension on there so it's a good tight wrap. Now I'm going to let this stuff tack up a bit more before I continue, because this is kind of the last several layers of wraps. This is really where the wrapping and the gluing matter, because this is going to be the point of highest tension. This is where you're going to get your fingers messy. Right here. Alright. Now this is in place. I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple zip ties just to really cinch on there tight while it's gluing up. Also going to go ahead and kind of add just a little bit more underneath this last edge. Good. Little bit of glue seep there ain't bad, but so we're still going to do some. I'm going to do some more things to the handle there. but great. I'm going to go ahead and go grab the zip ties, glue this guy up, let him sit out really for a couple hours with this contact cement, and then we will continue the project from there. Alright, excellent. So this has had some time to set up and dry now. Now what I'm doing is I'm simply going to be removing these zip ties that I added, just to kind of hold it tight while it was gluing. And to do that, I'm basically just inserting a knife here up underneath the tab that actually holds it, this way that I don't actually have to worry about cutting anywhere near my leather. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of tacks here. These are just some small sort of upholstery tacks that I had sort of laying around my shop. I pulled a couple of them out and decided that it would be good to add a little extra reinforcement to this. So, sometimes they get a little bit annoying. There we go. And sometimes you just say, to heck with it, and cut them off. Alright. So now I'm just going to go ahead and continue adding some of these tacks on. Now that the glue is mostly set, I decided to kind of go for two spaced tacks kind of evenly on each side. Just below where my handle's going to be. And I did go ahead and I started kind of playing around with some ideas for what I'm going to do with the handle. I happen to have had some memory foam laying around just from a previous project. Used to be an old pillow that I had. So this is simply, I just cut a hole down the middle of it using a long fillet knife and sort of sliced it carefully and throughout the entire thing. And I got a piece or two here that came together pretty well. And I think I'm going to do a leather wrap on top of that. So, great. And go ahead and just kind of space the other one down here. It's a little off center before I really set it in. I'm just going to do the same over here to the other side. Just kind of lining them up identically to what I had here, so that way they look good. 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 So now I've got two nice sets of tacks there, which are going to be holding in the leather even better. So, great. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and start kind of fiddling around with what I'm going to do for the handle. I hadn't really planned that far, so should be interesting. Another good thing I'm going to start working on as well is a way to counterbalance this handle. So, excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pause the camera while I kind of figure out these next couple steps, and then we'll go ahead and do them. Hey everybody, I'm sorry I had a camera malfunction and I couldn't record the wrapping of the handle. basically, when I wrapped the handle, I used something akin to a trapezoid in shape. So this way, when I wrapped it, I had this and that. I'll try to draw a picture and put that up on the in the description or a link to it. And then I simply just nailed the wrap to the handle inside, just keeping everything good and secure. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to do a small cover using just a bit more of the scrap leather that I have left over, because everybody loves leather. And so this is just I'm gonna fashion this up, and then I'm gonna do the same sort of a wrap around here, just to simply give it a good bit of coverage and a good bit of security there on the end. So I will go ahead and film the wrapping of the final pummel there. I'm sorry that I missed the other one. Sorry about that, another little camera mishap. Good. And one more. That's the wrong nail. There we go. Good, and that's now not going to go anywhere. Good. Ooh. Well, that just came off not too nicely. Doing a little bit too much tension. Alright. So now what I wanted to try and do is I was going to try and do a bit of a hidden sort of a nail in there. I'm going to do that by basically poking nails here through this fold that I just made. So, there we go. And we're going to go ahead and do one more. Good. Now, I'm going to use contact cement kind of all over that. Good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold these over, tighten them up, and then insert them in here. This is something I only kind of conceptualized. I didn't really practice this at all, so I don't know how this is going to happen. You know what? I don't think I'm going to do that. I just think I'm going to contact cement it. It's not going to be under that much stress. I've already got 4 tons of nails in there anyway. I'm going to fold this over though. Hide those holes. Give myself a clean seam. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back with the panduit ties. And just tighten that up. You know, I think I'm going to go ahead and go out and get some more tacks for that, kind of same way that I did up there for the top. These tacks. I just don't have any more of them on me now. But yeah, so once this guy dries up, you'll have yourself a nice full leather flogger. This thing is secure. I think it's going to last for a very long time. I think it looks pretty good. And honestly, I started this project maybe 3-4 hours ago. So honestly, it's a pretty easy one. Total cost on it ended up being right around $25-30 bucks. And I still have some leather scraps left over to play with. So honestly, it was fun one overall. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and show me all of your latest works. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to me through my Twitter or by leaving a comment on my videos. Thanks so much.